Support the podcast trusted by higher ed leaders. Get early, ad-free access and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe for only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the EdUp Experience. Today, I'm your guest host, Dr. Lori Shanderson, and I typically host EdUp Accreditation Insights, but I've taken some time off of my schedule to come over here to help out Joe and Elvin on the EdUp Experience. And guess what? Today we have the wonderful Dr. Matthew Nehmer, and he is he's the president of the Colleges of Law in Santa Barbara and Ventura, California. So welcome, Dr. Nehmer.
Thank you, Lori. It's a pleasure to be here.
I cannot wait to talk to you. What a distinguished background you have. Can you start off by sharing with our audience your leadership journey and what brought you to the Colleges of Law?
Yeah, my journey was a lot of zigs and zags. It wasn't some, traditional arc to the presidency where you start, many times you see this, you start as a faculty member and you go to a chair and then become a dean and then maybe a provost and find your way all the way to the presidency. I actually got started in public affairs for George Washington University. And I was in the communications and media office and the events office. And I wanted to do political communications. That's what I was in DC for. I was studying political communications to be a speechwriter, to do political messaging. I ended up at the university, and when I graduated, they asked me to stay on, and that really began my higher education journey. So I did public affairs, communications, a little bit of marketing for the first half of my career, more than the first half. And that got me to a new opportunity in Chicago. I met a fellow named Michael Horowitz, who was at that time the president of the Chicago School, which is you can look it up. It's the #1 psychology school, I think, in the world, definitely the country. And then he started what became the Community Solution Education System in 2009. And I was one of the original employees for that out of Chicago. And now we have 6 colleges, of which the Colleges of Law is one. And we have, reach from coast to coast. We have some international outreach as well in Canada. And found my way to Ventura and Santa Barbara for this position.
Tell me about, though, because we just kind of breezed past this, but I'm curious to know about the roles you had prior to that now have landed you in the role of president.
Yeah, it's a unique pivot. I haven't seen a lot of people do it. So it's a pivot from communications marketing to more operations. So I had an opportunity to work for the Chicago School in a couple of different roles. So I worked for Dr. Horowitz in Chicago and then was invited to go back to the Chicago School to serve as chief of staff to President Nealon, who's still the president there, and then pivoted again to become the campus dean for the Southern California campuses of the Chicago School. And that was in, LA, and at the time it was Irvine. Now they have one in Anaheim, and then we set one up in San Diego. And then 10 years ago, this position opened up, and, a long time ago, I mentioned just in passing to Dr. Horowitz has had an interest in serving in a leadership capacity, including a college president. I think he just sort of filed that away, and we kept talking about it. And it is, I think, a really great topic of the role of leaders and helping other leaders find a pathway to reach their goals. And that our story is just a great example of that. And then this position to open up, and it wasn't just given to me. I had to win it. There was a pool of candidates, and I went out for it. And eventually, the board invited me to serve. And here I am. We've been at it for 10 years. We've more than doubled enrollment. I think we tripled revenue. Our bar pass rates are up. And it's not just me. It really is my work to integrate the Colleges of Law into the system. model, which if you like, we can get into, and just to take advantage of what the system can offer schools like ours, smaller schools. And we saw the results speak for themselves. It's been a great success story. We were the last point I'll make is we were the first accredited law school in California to start a hybrid JD, one of the first in the nation. So what's that? That's 70% of the content's delivered online and 30% on campus through a monthly residency. First in the state to do that, and that's been a just extraordinary success. We went from 0 students to 160 students in just a few years, and we see more opportunities from growth from here. There's only one first, and that was us, and so we've been able to position ourselves in the marketplace in that way, and been very successful.
Well, I am going to say that your success is a testament of your leadership, because I know that to be the case. And the reason why I was curious about the pathway you took to the presidency is because I think that those presidents that find themselves extremely successful have been steeped in higher education somewhat. So they know what's coming, they know what to avoid, they know what they don't know. And I think those things are so important, especially now. So congratulations, tripled revenue, doubled enrollment. I mean, you write the textbook on how this should be done. But tell me, now that we talked a little bit about your background, what's your vision for legal education in the next decade? And how is the colleges of law positioning itself for that future?
There's going to be a lot of change. There already has been a lot of change, and we're seeing it across all of legal education. We're one of the unique schools in California, so we're accredited by the State Bar of California. And over the last 8 years, enrollment in the State Bar accredited schools has gone up dramatically, driven by schools like us and the schools that are offering distant modalities. Because up until the last 10 or so years, if you wanted to go to law school, it was your traditional campus experience. And largely, most of the law school sector caters to the full-time student, the day student. Those are going to be your more traditional ABA schools. Students coming right out of the undergraduate experience, mid-20s. You'll get some of those that come back to law school, many of those examples. There are a lot of high-profile schools out there, including GW, that offered night school. And then the schools like us that cater to a working professional, cater to families. The story I always tell our students, prospective students, incoming students, is that up until when we were founded, there was no option if you wanted to go to law school in Ventura, Santa Barbara County. You had to leave the area. You couldn't work. You really couldn't have a family. You had to devote everything to the work. So we help fill a need for that. And I think it's the schools that are going to continue to listen to learners to understand where education is going in the future, to try to understand where AI and other new technology is going to take us. Are the ones that they're the ones that are going to win the future, and they're going to be ones that are built to last. Like I said, we were the first hybrid program that's been successful, but that's just not going to be enough for us. We got to keep going, got to find ways to innovate. And one of the vision statements we came up with a few years ago was to be a pioneer in modernizing legal education, to do something different than the Socratic method, the sage on the stage, where students come in and the professor opens the book, and we do have some professors that still do it that way, and they're successful, and students like them. But we also have professors that use online tools and different ways of transferring content in different ways of engaging students. And I think the ones that figure that out are going to win the future.
And I agree, because there are some disciplines that maybe don't lend themselves to, at least we had that perception, that they wouldn't translate well in hybrid or a distance format. And the challenges to overcome some of that narrative exist for law, as well as healthcare, as well as some of the other disciplines that we just traditionally have not seen translating into an online or hybrid space like that. So yes, innovation is what you're talking about. And I'm happy to hear that you're considering things like AI, because I could imagine the impact of AI on the legal profession. Can you share with us some of those considerations and what you all wrestle with or what you embrace about AI for the legal profession?
Absolutely. We have a master's program, a master's in business law and technology, and we have a dean here. Her name is Jeannie Ikes, and she's one of the pioneering experts out there in the intersection of law and technology, including AI. We're privileged to have her with us. And she came out with I think it has to be one of the first AI in the law courses offered in a law school curriculum. We've already been running that for a couple of years now, and we've had sessions on campus. We've had workshops on campus. She ran a workshop on legal apps that had students come in and develop apps to provide legal services to the community and be able to scale it in a different way. She'll say that it's AI isn't going to take your job, but people that know how to use AI are going to take your job. And you hear that a lot kind of out there. So it's the law firms that I think are figuring out how to make it work for them and understand the technology and to just be kind of open to the technology and not just say that's not for me. I think they have a lot of opportunity before them because, as you know, that it's going to allow for whether it's research or writing or a host of other duties to be done quicker and with fewer people.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, when I think about, and I'm not able to speak on this expertly as you are, but the role of what is that role that always helps out the attorneys in gathering information?
like a paralegal.
Yeah, like a paralegal.
Yeah.
I could imagine that AI would be helpful to a paralegal or to help support the work of the paralegal just in terms of information gathering. Is that accurate?
It is, and research attorneys as well. And it's a whole branch of law that you don't hear as much about. When you think of law, you think of courtroom work and things that you see on TV. But there's a lot of people that do research work. They do legal writing. It's going to have an effect on those tasks. And not to say that people that do that work will go away entirely. But I think if they can learn how to harness it, or at least just have an interest in it to be able to stay on top of new developments and be able to begin to use the tool sets as they become more advanced and intuitive. It's just going to, serve them very well. And it's a competitive market, as you can imagine. And those who can do it well, I think will have an opportunity at least to get ahead.
Oh, that makes me think of this question. How do you balance academic rigor with innovative program delivery, especially like in the online and hybrid format?
If you're finding value in these conversations, consider supporting Elvin and Joe. As a supporter, you'll get early ad-free access, plus exclusive leadership-focused content. It's only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or even gift a subscription to a colleague at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Well, with AI, let me just tell you, it's something that we're not alone on this, but just students using AI. Let me just go there with you for a bit, and we can build from there. We say this in orientation. We actually show there's a famous case out there of an attorney that used an AI to write a brief, but AI, as you know, there's some issues with it. There's errors with it. It was obvious that the brief that we created didn't get the kind of fact checking that it really needed, and it was embarrassing. And it made news in the legal circles and maybe even a little bit beyond. So we show that story to our students and say, this is what not to do. And even with your own work, you're going to need to be able to show your faculty members, and then the bar exam. You can't use AI in the bar exam. You're going to need to be able to do this work to be licensed. So it's very clear, and it's in our academic catalog. We speak to it. But that said, I mentioned the AI in the law course. We don't say it's never to be used. It's just let's work together and learn from each other.
The
Learn from
appropriateness.
the latest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great cautionary tale to tell new students to just kind of lean on and develop their own skills, and maybe AI can help you check or identify weaknesses. But since they're going to have to demonstrate mastery of these skills later, why not learn them early on?
Absolutely.
Well, access to legal education still remains a barrier for many. And so I'm curious to know how your institution addresses issues of affordability and equity to access.
Access, opportunity, affordability, those are the three, tent poles of what the school is all about. They're core to our mission statement. They're the reason why the school was founded 55 years ago. And I already touched on it a little bit. If you wanted to be an attorney in our areas, there was really no path for you. Because of us, there's now a path. But it builds on that. I mentioned the hybrid program, which opened up this work to people that couldn't maybe stop their lives on the way to do 3 nights a week. Maybe they do shift work, or they work in a hospital. Uh, they just couldn't do the 3 nights a week. And so by doing the hybrid program, they can have access to their content on their own schedule and then join us on the weekends. It's just one weekend a month where they're on campus, and which is great because they were able to connect with their fellow cohort members and members of the faculty, and they just have that campus experience as well. So we've been really focused on access, affordability. We're less than half the cost of the ABA schools, and so that provides access to students in a way that they're really challenged otherwise. And then lastly, the ABA schools, the more traditional law schools, they are really competing for the top students, and we do get some excellent students there. But, if you're looking at Stanford or you're looking at Berkeley, you're probably not as much looking at us because you're looking for that more traditional law school experience. And so we're able to reach out to students that can't leave this area. I mean, they got a job, they got family, they got elderly parents, they got things, so they can't go to Berkeley, even if they wanted to, and they could get in. They can't leave. And so we're able to, provide, I think, a great service to them and terrific education that provides them an opportunity to realize
I
their
love
dreams.
that. Because at the end of the day, the big equalizer is the bar exam. And I know your students sit for the California bar. And so whether you went to What's the Matter U or wherever you went to, you ultimately have to pass the bar. So do you have students that maybe come in once a month from other states?
We do, yeah. More adjacent states. We have some come in from Arizona. We have some come in from Texas. I think we've had Nevada. We've even had Georgia,
Wow.
Minnesota. Honestly, I don't know how they found us. They found us. Maybe they had some local connections here and just knew about us. But definitely, we still have some out-of-state people in the program.
Well, let's talk a little bit about student success. So in what ways is the College of Law preparing students not only to pass the bar, but to thrive in this evolving legal profession?
It's a great question because curriculums like law school curriculum really focus on the bar tested subjects, and there's not a lot of room to do work beyond that. There's an elective pool that we have to just take the most advantage of. So you got, what are the bar tested subjects? You got your torts and contracts, criminal law, constitution law, remedies and the evidence and things like that. That's all in the curriculum. And you go to any law school and you're going to see those courses. They may be offered different ways, but you're going to see those courses. But what we've been able to do is, and really the hybrid program was the pioneer in this, is we were able to create content into single unit lawyering skills courses. And so every semester, it's called the Lawyering Skills Weekend. We have these single unit courses that are available. You come in for the whole weekend and you have access to specialized topics like how to run a law practice, public speaking for attorneys, areas like disability law, and really focused specialized areas that, you maybe don't need 3 units of that. You can come in and do 1 unit and have access to expertise in that area. And now we're seeing with the on-site program, the weeknight program, we're seeing that model begin to develop here, where some of our students can go and do those with the hybrid program, and we're starting to create We had one last year in leadership. It was a single unit course that was offered over a weekend. So that format, it's the breaking up of the 3 unit or the multi-unit model into single units, I think has really opened things up for our students.
Oh, that's great. Well, how do you partner with legal employers and the broader community to ensure that graduates are like job ready and also socially responsible?
As you can imagine, we have really deep roots in Ventura and Santa Barbara County. A lot of the legal profession are graduates of our school. We have members of our faculty work in that world, whether, in the DA's office, public defender's office, private practice. So we're already just by default kind of immersed because of our faculty, because of our graduates. And they look out for each other, and that network is very strong. And we also have, it's not just us, but all the California accredited laws, you have to have at least 1 unit of internship to graduate. But we have been really developing that and putting resourcing into that experience. Many years ago, it used to be kind of students were on their own. They had to go find their internship, get somebody to sign off on their hours, turn it in, get the unit. But now we've become more intentional. We have a dedicated internship director who makes those connections and helps students find internships. And it kind of dials up the rigor of it. It's not just showing some hours that you've done, but able to show the learning that you've experienced through that internship. So all of that kind of mixed together, I think, create a lot of opportunity for our students and graduates. And I think the results speak for themselves every time. And we just had our February bar results come out. And the names of the newly minted licensed attorneys are now in the public. We hear from employers like, can you send us the list? Can you get me in front of these students, especially the locals, because they know of the quality of our graduates and want to hire them.
Well, I appreciate that. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity. And it's nice to know that those students that are out of state also have the support of someone helping them find experiential learning opportunities. So
we provide it to all students, yes. And last point I'll make on that is that we have an Office of Bar Studies and Student Success. It's a 2-person office, and all they do all day long is think about how they can help students better prepare for the bar, how they can be more successful. So we've dedicated resources through personnel and all that they need to be able to further support students.
Well, as we wrap up our time, I just have a few more questions left,
Sure.
but I want to shift focus again and go back to your leadership. And I'm just curious right now because there's so much going on in higher education. What lessons have you learned as president that might be valuable for aspiring leaders in higher education?
Well, I'll go back to my time at GW. Because of the nature of my work, I was, in my 20s, but because I did public affairs, I got to go into the rooms where the leaders were wrestling with whatever was the issue of the day. And I had the privilege of watching a fellow named Stephen Joel Trachtenberg, who at that time was the president of GW, and his team, because I was the guy kind of in the corner. I was the one that was going to write the statement, or, if we needed to do a news release, if there needed to be remarks prepared. And what I found in that, it didn't look like the movies where it was whatever the crisis was, you'd have the leader march into the room and say, listen up, this is what we're going to do. It wasn't that way. It was a bunch of people, very smart people, but just trying to figure it out. And I think that was a humbling experience for me of the process of leadership, that they don't all have the answers, that the right answer isn't up to one person to find, that it's about people coming together and listening to each other and challenging each other. And out of that comes a consensus, and out of that comes wisdom. And when a bad decision is made, and learning from that, that didn't play out as I thought it would. And having that confidence in yourself to be able to learn from things and take responsibility for it is a lesson I had access to early in my career, and it served me all the way through. And what are we, we've all been through a lot together, right? We've been through COVID and all sorts of things in the last 5, 10 years. And now we're going through a lot with accreditation and changes in higher education. Tell you, nobody has the answer. Nobody's completely figured it out. It's a work in progress, and it's just really about listening to people, humility, widening your options, not this or that. What about a third option here? Attaining distance, giving yourself some space before you make a decision, and being prepared to be wrong, and saying, what happens if this doesn't play out the way we expect? What will we do then? And just going through that exercise beforehand, so it's not a scramble in the event you have to, rethink what direction you're going to go. So those are some of the lessons I'm still learning. I still learn from people, and it's an education that never stops.
I mean, everything that you said resonates with me. And I think the main thing that I heard is that you have to be adaptable, and you can't have preconceived notions of a leadership model. And I guess of how you'd respond to something, you have to consider all of the evidence and the data and the information, and be an inclusive leader, so that you come to consensus or not, but you decide on things together. It's not the role of one person.
Not the role of one person, but when you have a really good process, it's almost like a democratic process to come to what the decision is. But once the decision is made, it kind of flips to a little autocratic, because we have to move together, and this is the direction we're going, and everybody needs to be on board. And maybe they didn't agree with it, but they had an opportunity to share and to put their views out there. But once the call is made, we have to march together. And I believe in that as well, because as you see where presidents or leaders get into trouble is when they haven't done that work, and they have constituencies, stakeholders that are unaligned, that are just fighting against the decision, and you can see the effect of that. It just wears it down. You have to create energy to be able to deal with that, energy that could be spent on really advancing the objective.
Well, everyone should listen to you, because you are backed by the data to prove it, as successful as you've been. And I appreciate you, on behalf of the EdUp Experience, for sharing your time with us today, Dr. Matthew Nehmer, President of the Colleges of Law. We've loved having you on and engaging in this thoughtful conversation with us.
It's been a pleasure. I had a good time. Thank you so much for the invitation. It means a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, audience, for being here for another episode of the EdUp Experience. Anywhere you would like to find podcasts. I mean, there's a bunch of places I just discovered where you could find podcasts. If you type up the EdUp Experience, guess what? You'll find one of our shows there. And you can just pick from whatever you want to know about higher education, including, shameless plug for myself, accreditation insights. So check us out, everything and anything on higher education, the EdUp Experience platform. We look forward to having you back for another episode.
Stay ahead of the conversation in higher ed. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe. $5.99 per month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.